Hey, Patriots Nation, welcome back to the channel. We're back with another exclusive update straight out of New England. And before we get into everything that happened, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and stay locked in, because this game gave us a lot to talk about. This was one of those matchups that leaves you with mixed emotions, but also with a clearer picture of who this team is becoming and what direction it's headed in as the season moves forward. Let's start by talking about the positives, because despite the final result, there were moments that genuinely deserve recognition. The first thing that stood out was leadership, and that leadership was most visible under center. Drake may didn't have a perfect day throwing the football, and there's no reason to pretend otherwise, but what he did show was command, confidence, and accountability. He played with an edge, he played with urgency, and most importantly, he played like someone who understands that the quarterback sets the tone for the entire team. When the pressure ramped up and the game tightened, he didn't shrink from the moment. Instead, he leaned into it, using his legs, extending plays, and putting his body on the line when it mattered most. That kind of effort resonates in the locker room, and it's something teammates rally around. Drake May's impact on the ground was a huge part of why the Patriots were able to stay competitive, especially early on. His willingness to take off and make plays with his legs kept the defense guessing and added a layer of complexity that opened things up for the running game. That versatility is invaluable, particularly for a young quarterback, because it gives the offense multiple ways to attack when the passing game isn't fully in rhythm. You could see defenders hesitate just enough, and in the NFL, that split second is all it takes. That hesitation played directly into the hands of Trayvon Henderson, who had one of those performances that reminds you why explosive running backs are such a weapon. Henderson wasn't just picking up yards, he was changing momentum. He turned routine carries into big plays, broke tackles in traffic, and showed vision and burst that can't be coached. Every time he touched the ball, there was a sense that something could happen, and that kind of threat forces defenses to adjust their entire approach. When you combine Henderson's explosiveness with a quarterback who can keep the ball on option looks, the offense suddenly becomes much harder to defend. The first half, in particular, showed what this Patriots offense is capable of when everything is working together. The commitment to the run was clear, and it paid off. The offensive line did an excellent job opening lanes and creating push at the line of scrimmage, allowing the running game to establish rhythm and control the tempo. Play-action concepts and option looks were mixed in effectively, especially in high-leverage situations near the red zone. Those calls weren't just creative, they were confident, and they reflected a coaching staff that trusts its players to execute under pressure. There's something to be said about how a strong ground game can settle an entire offense. It keeps the chains moving, shortens third downs, and takes pressure off the quarterback. You could feel that early in the game, as the Patriots were able to dictate pace and keep the opposing defense on its heels. That kind of control is exactly what you want to see from a team with playoff aspirations, because it travels well and holds up in tough environments. Defensively, the first half also gave us reasons for optimism. Even without some key contributors available, the Patriots showed they could hold their own. They forced punts, limited big plays, and made timely stops that helped keep the game within reach. The defense played with discipline early, stayed sound in their assignments, and showed the ability to adjust after giving up yardage. That adaptability is crucial, especially when you're dealing with injuries and rotating players into bigger roles. There were flashes from the defensive front and the secondary that suggest this unit has more upside than the box score might indicate. Pressure was generated at key moments. Coverage held up on several critical downs, and communication looked solid for stretches. When this defense is healthy and firing on all cylinders, it has the potential to be a real strength. And even in this game, you could see the framework of that identity taking shape. Special teams also factored into the overall flow of the game. While there's still room for improvement, there were moments where execution and effort stood out. Field position was managed effectively at times, and those small wins matter more than people realize. In close games, a single return, a single coverage play, or a single kick can swing momentum, and recognizing that phase of the game is part of building a complete team. Stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, what stands out is that this Patriots team has real building blocks in place. There is young talent making an impact, there is leadership emerging, and there is a clear willingness to adapt and fight through adversity. The offense has players who can create explosive plays. The defense has depth and flashes of dominance. And the mindset within the team appears focused on accountability rather than excuses. Drake May's growth is central to all of this. His ability to lead, to take responsibility, and to contribute in multiple ways gives the Patriots a foundation to build around. When you pair that with the dynamic ability of Trayvon Henderson and the steady presence of other contributors in the backfield, you start to see an offensive identity forming. It may not be fully polished yet, but the pieces are there, and that's what makes games like this both frustrating and encouraging at the same time. This matchup was a reminder that progress isn't always linear. There are going to be ups and downs, strong halves, and challenging stretches, but what matters is how the team responds and what it learns. The Patriots showed they can compete, they showed they can control games in key moments, and they showed that leadership and effort are not lacking. As the season moves forward and the stakes get higher, those qualities will be tested, but based on what we saw here, this is a team that is still very much finding its footing and building towards something more consistent. All right, Patriots fans, picking things up from there, this second half of the breakdown is where we really have to dig into the details, because this is the part of the game that revealed both the growing pains and the real opportunities for this team moving forward. If the first half showed us the ceiling of what this Patriots squad can look like, the second half reminded us just how thin the margin for error is in the NFL and how quickly momentum can shift when execution slips even slightly. One of the biggest stories coming out of the second half was consistency, or rather the lack of it. Offensively, the Patriots struggled to maintain the same rhythm they had established earlier. Drives that were once methodical and controlled became shorter, and the offense found itself in tougher down-and-distance situations. Part of that comes down to adjustments made by the opposing defense, but part of it also comes down to execution. Missed opportunities in the passing game stalled momentum. And while Drake May continued to battle and compete, it became clear that sustaining drives would require sharper timing, cleaner routes, and better chemistry across the board. That said, even during those struggles, Drake May's competitive nature never wavered. You could see it in his body language, in the way he communicated with teammates, and in how he continued to push the ball and use his legs when necessary. Young quarterbacks are often judged harshly by box scores, but growth is measured in moments like these. Facing adversity, dealing with defensive adjustments, and still finding ways to keep the team engaged is part of the learning curve. These are experiences that don't always show up immediately in wins, but they pay dividends down the road. The running game, while still effective at times, also felt the impact of a more aggressive defensive approach in the second half. Defenses began loading the box, crashing down harder on option looks, and forcing the Patriots to prove they could beat coverage consistently through the air. Trayvon Henderson continued to fight for yards and showed toughness between the tackles, but the explosive lanes that were there early became harder to find. This is where balance becomes critical. When opponents overcommit to stopping the run, the ability to punish them through the passing game becomes essential, and that's an area where the Patriots are still developing. Defensively, the second half was undoubtedly frustrating. Missed assignments, breakdowns in coverage, and an inability to consistently get off the field on third down allowed the opposing offense to control long stretches of the game. Tight ends found space. Receivers were able to exploit soft zones, and tackling became less consistent as the game wore on. Fatigue, injuries, and depth all played a role, but at this level, those factors can't become excuses. They have to become points of emphasis in practice and preparation. Still, it's important to keep context in mind. This defense was operating without key contributors, and players were asked to step into roles with increased responsibility. There were moments where effort was not the issue, but communication and execution were. Those are correctable problems. Film study, reps, and clarity in assignments can go a long way in tightening up a unit that, at its best, has shown it can be physical, disciplined, and disruptive. One encouraging sign was that even as things started to unravel, the defense continued to compete. There were plays where defenders rallied to the ball, limited yards after contact, and prevented even bigger gains. That speaks to pride and effort, two things that matter when you're trying to build a resilient team identity. The challenge now is translating that effort into consistent results across all 4 quarters. Special teams in the second half were steady but unspectacular, which in itself tells part of the story. No catastrophic mistakes, but also no game-changing moments to swing momentum back in New England's favor. As the competition stiffens, those hidden yardage plays become increasingly important. Whether it's a return that flips field position or a coverage unit pinning an opponent deep, those moments can relieve pressure on both the offense and defense. This is another area where incremental improvement can have an outsized impact. What really stands out when you look at the full game is how close the Patriots are to putting together a complete performance. The talent is evident. The effort is there. The leadership is emerging. What's missing is sustained execution across all phases for a full 60 minutes. That's not an easy thing to achieve, especially for a team integrating young players into key roles, but it's also not unrealistic. These are the kinds of lessons that shape teams over the course of a season. From a leadership perspective, the post-game tone matters just as much as the plays on the field. Hearing players talk about accountability, about correcting mistakes, and about responding the right way during the week says a lot about the culture that's being built. Losing exposes weaknesses, but it also reveals character. The Patriots didn't shy away from responsibility, and that's a critical trait for any team with long-term ambitions. Looking ahead, this game serves as a reference point. It shows what works when the Patriots lean into their strengths, particularly the running game and quarterback mobility. It also highlights where refinement is necessary, especially in passing consistency and defensive communication. The schedule won't get any easier, and upcoming opponents will test every aspect of this roster. How the Patriots respond in practice, how they adjust game plans, and how quickly young players absorb lessons will determine whether this season trends upward. Drake may remains at the center of that conversation. His development is not just about touchdowns and completion percentages, but about command, decision-making, and leadership under pressure. He's showing flashes of being the kind of quarterback who can elevate those around him, and as his comfort level grows, the passing game should follow. Pairing that growth with a strong, physical running attack gives the Patriots a clear offensive identity, one that can travel and compete in tough environments. In the end, this game was a reality check, but not a discouraging one. It reinforced that the Patriots are not far off, but it also made clear that potential alone isn't enough. Execution, discipline, and consistency are the next steps. The foundation is being laid, the lessons are being learned, and the response to this loss will say a lot about the direction of this team. For Patriots fans, the message is simple. Stay patient, stay engaged, and watch the details. This is a team in the process of defining itself, and while the road may be bumpy at times, the building blocks are there. The second half of this season will be about growth, resilience, and turning these lessons into results, and that's what makes the journey worth following. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Your support helps us bring you the latest updates on the New England Patriots. And of course, drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from Patriots fans. In a shocking turn of events that has sent the NFL world into a frenzy, sources indicate that the much-anticipated clash between the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills has reportedly been canceled. While official statements are sparse, the mere mention of this cancellation has ignited a storm of speculation across social media and sports talk shows alike. Fans of both teams are reportedly stunned, with many taking to Twitter to voice their disbelief, frustration, and, in some cases, outright outrage. The Patriots and Bills have been locked in a heated rivalry over the past few seasons, with each matchup carrying high stakes for playoff positioning. The sudden absence of this showdown leaves a gaping hole in the narrative of the NFL season, sparking endless debate among analysts and commentators. Rumors are swirling about the reasons behind the cancellation. Some insiders hint at internal disputes, while others speculate that logistical challenges or behind-the-scenes controversies may have forced the league's hand. There's even chatter suggesting that player health or unexpected safety concerns could have played a role, although nothing has been confirmed. The ripple effect of this development is already being felt across the league. Ticket holders are reportedly demanding explanations, with fan forums filled with heated debates over refunds, team accountability, and the potential impact on playoff dynamics. Meanwhile, sports betting markets are reportedly in chaos, as this unforeseen turn throws previously calculated odds into disarray. Coaches and players from both teams have remained tight-lipped, fueling further speculation. Analysts are questioning what this means for the future of the rivalry, and whether similar disruptions could affect other marquee matchups. With the NFL notoriously protective of its image, insiders suggest that a carefully crafted statement is likely imminent, but until then, the rumor mill shows no signs of slowing down. Whether this cancellation marks the beginning of a larger controversy or is an isolated incident remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The Patriots-Bills rivalry, already one of the most talked about in the league, has now entered an entirely new and unpredictable chapter. Fans, commentators, and players alike are left to wonder, what really happened, and what does it mean for the season ahead? That's it for today's update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving fresh and exclusive Patriots news, make sure to subscribe and hit like. We always appreciate hearing your opinions in the comments. See you in the next one, Patriots Nation.